Welcome to Founded in Africa series, and I have, the honor of having Judith Nwandu as my first guest. You're welcome, Judith.
Hi, thanks for having
Hi.
me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. With the African Studies Center is, kind of the resource center for the university and our community. And when I say community, it means community members, the rest of the people of North Carolina, even if you're outside of UNC. We serve as a resource center. We provide information, we educate and inform on anything that concerns Africa, and that involves economics, research around politics, education, health. Of course, we've generated a lot of content and information with regards to COVID. And then right now we've also done some activity around the diaspora and the diaspora's role in development. So in thinking about how to constantly set up a mechanism of sustaining engagement with Africans in diaspora in the United States, it gave birth to hashtag Founded in Africa. And some people had asked me, how did you reach out to Judith? And I said, I just sent her a DM and she responded. So that was really cool. And I appreciate you being just so available and open and generous with your time. Thank you. So you're welcome. So, we have participants already on the call, and we have others joining us, but we're just going to go straight to this, very informal and casual chat where we get to know who Judith is and the work that she's doing and what her future looks like. But before that, let me read out a bio about Judith. So Judith is the senior political reporter at The Shade Room, which is the #1 most engaged platform across social media of 2020. Judith covers politics and everything in between and has interviewed the likes of the US President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris around topics such as reparations for the Black community and police reform. Judith has been honored as a change maker and social shaper for her work in her community. And of course, Judith went to Duke, which is also my alma mater, but finished off at the University of Southern California, correct?
Yes, USC.
Yeah, so welcome, Judith. I'm just gonna, dive, into the questions that I have. So this is kind of like a Q&A session. And the first question I have for you is, I want to get a window into the Judith before all of the work that you're doing now. What was your childhood like? And then right after that, I'm going to let me let you answer that question before I go into the next question.
Okay, so my childhood, it was pretty rough. It was really interesting. So when I was 1 year old, I became a ward of the state, which means I entered foster care. My dad actually and my mom were in an abusive relationship. And there's 5 of us girls, right? I have 4 big sisters, and they had been, in a pretty abusive relationship throughout their lives. And then when I was 1, my dad actually killed my mom. And so my sisters and I went to foster care, and I was in foster care until I was 18. I lived with kin, so that's considered kinship care, starting at age 10 with my cousin. And then a couple years later, I started living with one of my sisters, Gloria. And she was in college while she was taking care of me. And it was pretty rough because we weren't receiving funding from the state for a couple years. But I moved a lot. I went to 6 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 1 high school, and a few colleges. I would say it was rough, but I always loved school. I always had a lot of friends. I was always close with my sisters, and really good at sports and dance. So I always had a release, but it was at home. I would say the home life was really unstable. That's pretty much how my childhood was.
Thanks I appreciate you sharing, such, the trauma and such a devastating story and being open with your pain and your grief, and you've come out, of course, stronger, and that's why you're able to share it with us and inspire other people who might be going through some difficulty, but nothing compares to what you've gone through. And my hat goes out to you, and I'm really just really proud of the woman that you are. So maybe we can use that as an inroad into, your connection to Africa, specifically Nigerian. You're a first generation American. Can you speak a little bit about your connection to the continent and Nigeria specifically?
Yeah, so both of my parents are Nigerian. My dad's from Owerri. My mom is from her village is like in Aba, and they had my eldest sister in Nigeria. So she was born in Nigeria, and then the rest of us, my parents came here in 1984. They came to LA, and they had the rest of us here. So we're first generation, and then one of my sisters is technically an immigrant. And, my dad was a professor, my mom was a nurse, and then they came out here and pursued that here again. So my mom got her nursing license out here, and then my dad was a professor. But I have family. I've got cousins, aunties, uncles, and stuff like that that are Nigerian. I don't know how to speak Igbo really, but I would say that my Nigerian influence, or like not my Nigerian influence, like the culture's influence on me growing up was, this is cut out. The culture's influence on me growing up was primarily academic, like just making sure that I took school very seriously. If I came home with an A-, people would be like, where's the A+? I'm like, okay. And that's just kind of the mindset I adopted, no they carry last. And that's just, pretty much the extent of, I don't know. We're Nigerian, but we really identify a lot of our sisters just being kind of like Black Americans for the most part.
Yeah.
Obviously not growing up with our parents.
Yeah. I understand that completely. And so I guess, your connection is quite limited. Have you been to Nigeria?
Not yet. I've been to Ghana, but not Nigeria.
Okay. What about your sisters?
Like waiting on me to go back. All my sisters have been, yeah. Technically, I was in my mother's belly when I went to Nigeria, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Listen, I think I might take you to Nigeria very soon. Who knows?
I would love to go.
Yeah, we'll have fun.
I almost went when I was in Ghana for the Essence Full Circle Festival.
Yeah.
2019 to 2020. I was like, we should just take a flight to Nigeria. But yeah.
Yeah. We're going to make that happen somehow. So thanks for that as well. So I guess, I'm just going to, you touched on lightly in your intro about you being, really strong with your academics and being also, interested in sports as a student. So just what kind of sports did you play, and what was your, what you would describe as your academic strengths when you were in pretty much high school and maybe some middle school and a little bit about, and mostly about undergrad as well?
Okay, so I played softball. I loved softball. I actually used to think I was going to be a professional softball player, or at least play in college. I played a little bit of volleyball, but I quit the team when my friends didn't make the team and I was bored with the people who were on the team. So I was like, whatever. And then dance. I danced all through high school and I loved dance. I did ballet, jazz, hip hop, and pom, which is like the cheer kind of dance. And then I went to college at Duke and I was on the dance team. So we performed at the Duke basketball games, the Duke football games. We went to the NCAA championships and traveled there, and they put us up in a hotel. We stayed, and cheered the football team on. I remember we lost that game like crazy. We played against Florida, and they FSU, and they beat us. But it was really fun. I remember the memories. Like mostly winning with basketball was great, and cheering them on. And I thought I actually wanted to be maybe a professional dancer, but I was like, okay, no, this isn't gonna work. So yeah, that was my favorite sport. Some people consider dance to be a sport. Yeah. As far as the kind of student I was really type A, K through 12. Every single grade, every single thing. I think I had fifth grade was when they started calculating GPA for us. From 5th grade to 12th grade, I had a 4.0 or better the whole time. But in college, things changed. When I went to Duke, I thought I was going to be pre-med because, you know, my family was like, be a doctor, be a surgeon, whatever. And so I took some science classes and I was like, oh, let's just say I didn't do that well. I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. I need to change my major and start focusing on classes that I'm actually going to do really well in. And so I was thinking econ. I was like, no, I don't think that's it. And I was thinking marketing. And then I took a journalism class at Duke. And at that point, I knew I was going to transfer out of Duke because I had a good time with my friends. I had a good time being on the dance team, but I was really depressed being in North Carolina and being far away. So I was like, I think I'm going to leave Duke because it took me so long to try to commit to a major to the point where they have this program called Project 2. And I wanted to actually create my own major. So I pitched a major, which was kind of focusing on marketing and media. I don't remember the exact title, but it got rejected. They were like, no, this is something, they were like, do a semester at USC, because they actually have a Duke at USC program. And they were like, and learn a little bit more about production and then repitch. And I was like, okay. So I ended up actually taking a gap year, but during my gap year, I did a semester limited status at USC. And I took an entertainment journalism course and then like a PR writing journalism course. And I loved it, especially the entertainment, politics, and business journalism class I took, right? That was the entertainment journalism course. And I was like, okay, this is where I should be. This is what I should probably try to get into. I thought I would do it like more from the production side of things and less being like on camera. But yeah, so the type of student I was just like in college, I was really curious and I was really just like kind of went with the flow. And I was just searching for my passion. And I eventually found it in like a really odd way. Like when I applied to transfer to USC, I applied to be a print journalism major. And when I got in, for the first time, the journalism school combined video broadcast and print journalism. So everybody, no matter which major you apply for, if it was broadcast or print, had to take both. And then when I started getting into it, I realized I like broadcast. It was like it was meant to be.
That's a very inspiring story. Like I do tell, you know, what we tell students here at UNC, and of course, I'm sure other professors, is just be curious and be open to a different, you know, a range of different options and explore before you decide, you know, what your path will to. And that's the big difference between studying in the US and studying in a place like Nigeria, for instance, because right upon your admission into your higher institution, your path is already defined, like and you're going to stick with it. And if you want to change, then you have to do like a course switch, and you're also stuck. So there isn't a lot of flexibility to play around with what you want to major in or minor in. So that's a great story. So you kind of already answered the question, because I was interested in, you know, finding out how you found your way into marketing and journalism, because I also know that you did some, you know, I think you probably minored in public policy at Duke, correct?
Yeah, well, I was technically declared and then withdrew, right, and transferred. Public policy, what I liked about public policy is the courses I was taking focused on a little bit of public speaking, but also copyright law. But I was taking that only to supplement what I thought would be a career in production and entertainment. So I'm like, I should understand copyright law. But it turns out I actually need to know copyright law for journalism. So yeah.
Okay, cool. And you also answered my other question about why did you leave the Devils for USC? But that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about, you know, what you would, if journalism didn't, I mean, right after school, you did a lot of internships and actually worked in a few media companies and an intern for Fox News. I think that was your first like real life experience with actual working in journalism. If journalism didn't work out, what would have been an alternative career path for you?
I did internships with Sony, and that was like reality TV syndication. And then I did an internship with Fox Broadcast, and that was technically the same thing, like alternative TV programming. And one of the shows, because Sony's a studio and Fox is a network, one of the shows that Sony sold to Fox, I actually got to see them prepare the show at Sony and then watch them on the back end at Fox discuss like if it was going to go on air or not. The pilot never aired, but I got to see like the full circle of how you pitch a show from concept to completion because of those two. And I thought that's why I was going to be an entertainment producer. But then, you know, I kind of got into journalism after that. And then my first job after that, like, I don't know, it was like I studied journalism in school, but at some point, I don't think I really thought I was going to be able to do it as a career. So I kind of retreated and I was like, oh, I'll use the internship experience I had with Sony and Fox, and I'll just kind of get into maybe like an administrative role in production, or just focus on being a not a physical producer, but like a creative producer. And I realized, I was like, I don't know, I think I need to pursue reporting and, you know, being on air, because I had professors at USC that would tell me, they're like, I feel like you're playing it safe. I feel like you are still going to figure out what you want to do, but I can tell that the kind of person you are in class, and I'm seeing your personality and I see how your peers respond to you, like you should be on camera. And I was like, okay. So, you know, I decided to go ahead and, you know, I thought I would get it, like, I wanted to do entertainment reporting just because, like, my sister started the Shade Room at the time. It was mostly just a celebrity tea page. And I, in college, did red carpets and a lot of, like, talk show stuff that was focused on entertainment. So I was like, I guess that's kind of where I'm pigeonholed. And then it was just kind of spontaneous how I got into doing political reporting here. Joe Biden's team in the Shade Room, we all got connected, and they were like, we want to step in and do an interview. And I was supposed to be a producer for it because I was working in production at TSR at the time. And, you know, 6 people had to step down for various reasons. Like, it would be the person saying, oh, you know, there's somebody here who, she's Black technically, but she's biracial and she appears to not look very Black. And she was like, I don't want to do the interview anymore because I don't look Black and I don't want to ask Joe Biden questions about the Black community. And the roommates be like, why is this non-Black girl asking these questions? So she took herself off. And then we were pitching influencers that don't actually work at TSR. Some of the founders of Black Lives Matter, Van Jones, I don't know if you guys know who he is. And he used to work at TMZ. He's like an independent podcaster now. And they were like, oh, we don't want them. If we wanted them, we would have reached out to them. We want somebody from TSR. Yeah. And then my sister, the CEO, was supposed to do it. She got sick and had to step down. And then we pitched a man that works here in social impact. And the Biden team rejected him. They were like, we want him to sit down with a Black woman. It was just like all these different excuses. And then finally, the last minute, they're like, wait, Judith, why don't you do it? Why do you produce and be on it? And once I did that, it just started to go up from there.
I mean, I watched that interview and you know, you felt and acted and interviewed like a pro. You know, good questions. I really enjoyed it. And who knew that, you know, almost a few months after that I will be talking to you, because I did watch that interview where you talked about reparations and talked about, you know, the inequality in healthcare as well, you know, when it comes to Black women and having babies. You also, you know, started talking about Shade Room. So you already introduced my next question. So it seemed like, you know, you were running along, doing your own thing and finding your own path. And then your sister, who had trained to be an accountant, but had a passion for writing, started Shade Room. And my guess would be that she started it just casually as something that would be like a side thing. And somehow it seems like it's all aligned. Can you speak, you know, just briefly about, you know, what that was like when she had started Shade Room and when you were doing your own thing, you know, what kind of influences happened at that time, and how did you eventually start working for Shade Room?
So the funny thing is, and I need the exact date. I'm already locked out of like all my college emails at this point. Like they, you know, they shut down the email accounts. So if you guys have any important emails that you want, do what I did to some degree and just forward them to like your Gmail or something like that. But it's too late for me to look at it now. But, oh, I know, I can look at an old calendar. Okay, so here's the thing. I registered for my very first journalism class in March of 2014. Angelica created the Shade Room March 2014. It was really interesting. Now, we didn't know this until years later. So it's funny how it happened the same month. And the reason I want the emails is so I can see if it was the exact same day, because she has the email for like, oh, you created your account. So I wanted to see, but I bet you anything they're really like close in date, but if not the same day. But I still wasn't sure I would be doing journalism for a really long time. And Angelica wasn't sure that if the Shade Room would be anything other than, you know, like just a blog, like, you know, just something like, you know, something small, something simple. So I started living with Angelica during my gap year, like the end of 2015, early 2016. And this is before the Shade Room was really big. Like, this was like, we were in Hawthorne and she had a 1-bedroom apartment. I would sleep on the floor in the living room because the couches were all busted up. There were roaches, like it was a whole different life than now. And I remember when I was living with her, she had gotten deleted for the first time. And the second time following shortly after that. And she was crying. She was like, I think I'm gonna give up. And we're like, no, keep going, start again. The roommates will follow, they'll come back. And they did. And certain celebrities like Tammy Roman would post about it and all that stuff. So I got to see that whole experience and her getting the original Shade Room handle back and everything just blowing up and growing. And then other than the time I was living on campus at USC, from then to now, Angelica and I have continued to live together. And so that was in the last, I'm 25, you know, that was like the last 5 years minus the time I was at USC. So yeah, a couple years. And I would say, you know, it was like meant to be, because once I started getting into my senior year of USC, people started asking like, well, you know, you seem like you would work, you know, I don't know, if you want to be a producer, you probably work at like Sony or Fox or one of the places you already worked at. And then they were like, but if you want to do journalism, would you consider working for your sister? And I remember I used to like loathe the question because some people on campus didn't take TSR very seriously. And they would be like, I hope you're not getting your degree just to go work at the Shade Room. And I was like, So I kind of internalized that a little bit. But now I realize, like, of course I want to work at the Shade Room. Like, I don't care what anybody has to say. And they're all liking all my posts now, like, oh my gosh, look what the Shade Room's doing. I'm like, yeah, exactly. But you know, it was an interesting time because Angelica and I started looking at, you know, the option of me working there, but then, you know, here at TSR, but she hadn't created the video department yet. So when she created the video department, like 6 months after I graduated, and she started hiring a head of video, then she was like, Judith, would you like to be an assistant producer in the department? And that's how I kind of got into working for her. But before that, I would send her all my academic articles and stuff like that I wrote in at USC, any research I had about, you know, digital journalism, because the focus when I was studying journalism at USC was how legacy outlets were struggling to adapt to social media and all the changes, and new outlets, like people think of like Now This and other outlets were starting to kind of take over and of course be, you know, able to adapt to changes on social media a little bit better. So I kept feeding her all that information, like, yeah, the Shade Room is perfect. The Shade Room is like right in where it should be and stuff like that. It's on Instagram and, you know, all, you know, it was just really interesting. And then, you know, it came full circle later when I started reporting here. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Very interesting story. So you talked about how you interviewed, how it came about that you interviewed Joe Biden. It was kind of happenstance, you know. Mm-hmm. Before that, did you think you would be interested in politics and reporting and following politics and social justice issues, or were you already doing some of that?
Technically, so here's what happened. I thought I had to do entertainment reporting because when I look at my reel, and I had like 1,000 minutes of footage from college in my reel, and I was like, it's all entertainment basically. So I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pitch myself to be a reporter at a place like CBS or, you know, eventually CNN or anything like that. So I was like, I'll just do entertainment. But when I would talk about it with my family and friends, they were like, I remember there was 1 week, 3 people in 1 week were like, oh, it was my sister Gloria, and it was 2 friends of mine that were like, we see you doing more politics. And this was like in the end of 2018. So that was the year I graduated. And they were like, yeah, we see you doing politics. I see you doing something like more like CNN or, you know, but being like yourself. And they were like, I don't know. I just feel like you care about social justice and more important issues than entertainment in your daily conversation. So why wouldn't you not go and pursue that in reporting? So I kept that in the back of my mind. In 2019, like late summer, I had a conversation with my friend, and I was still an entertainment producer, and I was going on auditions and talking to networks about doing little gigs and entertainment reporting. And I remember having a phone call with my friend, and we were talking about what we want to do in the future. And we were like, maybe even as soon as 2020. And I was like, I want to get into community reporting, and I want to, you know, explore, you know, politics. And I was like, and I told her, I was like, I'm probably going to interview like Joe Biden one day and this, that, and the third. And my friend laughed. And now we're still friends, everything's cool. But she was like, laughing like, oh my God. She's like, next year, like in the 2020 election, and it's 2019. I'm like, yeah. And literally, I think it was 6 months later, I ended up actually interviewing Joe Biden. So it's pretty interesting. I think I had like a small inkling that I would get into it, especially listening to that advice I had gotten from those 3 people that week saying, oh, you know, I think politics is your thing. I even had there was one professor, my first time ever having a Black female professor was my final semester at USC, and I had 2 Black female professors. And they were both like, we feel like you know, you like entertainment, you like social media, you like memes and this and that, but I feel like you should do something that's more worthwhile. And, you know, and they were like, I feel like you should get into some of the issues that you presented. Cause I used to do a lot of my projects about Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. And they were like, yeah, I feel like that would be you, but you know, you'll figure yourself out when you grow up and stuff like that. I was like, okay. And so these voices were kind of in the back of my head. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, but I ended up doing this, and I feel like it was God's plan all along, and I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like I can talk to you all day about, you know, just your evolution and the changes. And so yeah, I'm sure you can hear some of the noise in the background. My kids are getting wild. It's that time of the day.
There's boys downstairs. We have people here renovating the house and stuff, so it's like pretty
Okay.
loud. I hope you guys don't hear.
You know, I can hear anything. But talk to me about your experiences with just discrimination and racism and the difficulty, I mean, if any, but the difficulty of being a Black woman in your field of work and the challenges and how you are overcoming them.
I feel like I'm really lucky working at the Shade Room, being surrounded by predominantly Black women, because this isn't a typical newsroom, and I get to be unapologetic with myself and be supported by people who look like me and generally think and act like me. But I did experience some racism. I love USC, but I did experience some racism in Annenberg. Other Black students, and we were all so different. Like there'd be a Black, you know, immigrant student from the UK who would dress super sharp every day, head to toe, and she works at Washington Post now, and I always told her like, you're gonna get a Pulitzer Prize. And she had like a 3.92 GPA. She experienced a lot of racism and people belittling her and stuff like that, because it didn't matter how buttoned up you were. And then there would be, you know, me and another Black girl who were more entertainment and more bubbly, and we would experience that. All of us, no matter where we fell on the spectrum, experienced that. And it's sad because it's a reflection of how journalism and just news is in general. Like if you work in a legacy news outlet as a Black person, you'll find that they do a couple of things, especially a Black woman. One, they'll just kind of discredit a lot of the things a lot of the ideas that you bring to the table. 2, they're a lot harsher on you for every little thing you do versus like, let's say if it was like a white or an Asian person, you know, that tried to do, that did the same thing. Like they'll just kind of like, I don't know, like you guys, I'm sure you guys understand, if you guys work in like your newspaper or like your broadcast at your school, it just sucks. And they'll tokenize you too. So when it's time to talk about Black issues, all of a sudden, you know, your pitches go through, they're like, okay, yeah. But then when, you know, that dies down in the news cycle, it's back to, you know, just whatever. And so that's pretty much the racism I experienced. And I remember experiencing that in Edinburgh. And I was like, I don't, because I was a senior, what was I, social media manager or whatever, like the student jobs where they pay us to do like stuff in the media center. And I remember I hated it. I was like, I don't want to work for a predominantly white news org when I get out of here. So that's just that. And I just won't do it because I just couldn't stand it. Like it would be simple things like, oh, there's editorial decisions that people make that don't sit well with me. Like if a Black man was shot by police, you guys are showing this really endearing, you know, very polished looking photo of the police smiling in front of an American flag. And then you show the Black man's mugshot and you put that side by side and that's the thumbnail. Like that's stupid. Like that's propaganda. Another thing, or I would say, for example, I did a project in a class that was supposed to be a woke class about, you know, the social responsibility of a journalist in today's society or whatever it was called. And I remember I still have an email I sent my professor, like, he was a white man and he was like, okay, you guys can do a project about, you know, what you think is inequity in news reporting and this and that. I'm like, yay. So I always wanted to talk about how, for example, you guys, we see the social media videos circulating, like the body cam footage of people getting shot, like Ma'Khia Bryant. Well, we obviously, everybody had just seen at least a thumbnail from the video of George Floyd being murdered by Derek Chauvin. I remember in 2014, I was traumatized just looking at that photo of Trayvon Martin dead on the grass. We don't have to argue about this. Like they show Black and brown bodies. It could be people in Syria, a baby. I remember it was a dead baby on the cover of Time magazine. And I'm like, why are we consistently seeing Black and brown dead bodies? I think that's odd. It's death porn and it's desensitizing people to these things. But we never see white dead bodies. Like raise your hand if you, okay, I don't know if I can see you raising your hand, but like raise your hand if you ever see white dead bodies in the media. Not saying that the solution is to show us white dead bodies. The solution is to stop showing these dead bodies altogether. Right? So I presented that and he was outraged and the white students in the class were angry. They're like, that's not true. So I challenged them. I put a whole thing together. I was like, show me a white dead body. Come on, show me a white dead body that was published. They couldn't bring it. And so this professor found this random Russian documentary that had shown a body in a casket and the casket was closed, being lowered into the ground. Who's like, that's an example. And I was like, you're depraved. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like I hated it. I remember I was like, ugh, like I just don't even want to work in these newsrooms because I feel like there's just so much that I can't change. I don't think that I'm going to personally be called to try to change these things from within their organizations. Whatever I do is going to be outside of the organization. So that was a lot of the racism I experienced in journalism. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks. Very insightful. Just a lot to unpack from there. You know, there's just all of the, you know, the tokenism you mentioned, the nuances and the misinformation and the stereotype that continues to perpetuate all of the decisions that are made and the things that we consume as viewers and consumers of media production, you know, and your intent, you know, unconsciously ingesting these information that continues to perpetuate different biases and all of that, and it's unfortunate. And I wish, you know, more production houses can, you know, begin to diversify their teams and become more sensitive to the issues. So you mentioned the trial, Derek's Chauvin's murder trial. I know that you covered that story, and I wonder, you know, what would you say that this experience did for you professionally, but more importantly, personally? It was, you know, I mean, I remember sitting in my living room and just waiting with bated breath for, you know, for the judge to announce the jury's decision. And I didn't know how much I was holding my breath until he made the announcement, and I pretty much just started crying. My mom was there, my cousin was there, and everyone was just crying because it seemed like we were expecting that he would go free, you know. So I wonder, you being on ground and covering this and being a Black woman, what did this do to you personally and professionally?
Yeah, that's a good point. Honestly, like a lot of people were holding their breath. I was watching the trial like intently leading up to going out in Minneapolis and being on the ground outside the courthouse covering the protest. And I remembered, I was like, this is a moment where I realized like, this isn't a typical interview that I do with a politician where we're talking about these issues. Like now I'm actually going to be more on the front lines reporting about social justice. And I have to take care of my mental. You know, I have to watch the trial. I have to watch them constantly play that video over and over again. I have to watch the defense come up with these ridiculous arguments that make me want to punch the screen. But I also have to just really take care of myself and just prepare for the worst and not be so emotional. Like, remember when I said I was on the dance team? I remember when like our football team would lose, I remember my coach would say, "You're too emotional." You'd be like, like you could see the disappointment in your face while you're cheering. You have to always smile and be like, "Yeah, let's go." Even if they're beating us 100-5, because our football team at Duke sucked, you know that, right? I'm sorry. But the basketball team was a different story. But I felt the same thing here. I was like, okay, Judith, you're a reporter. Like, woosah, you know what I mean? Like you have to kind of disconnect a little bit, even though as a Black woman, it's like, how do you disconnect from this? This is like affects you and your community. Honestly, considering Derek Chauvin was the first police officer to be convicted in the whole state of Minnesota for killing a Black man, and they have plenty of officers who've killed Black men and women over the years, I expected the worst. And so it was a shock when I was out there on the front lines and everybody was just celebrating. We were like, guilty. And they were like, wait, of all 3 charges? Like, it was insane. I'll never forget that moment. It to me is like something that I'll never forget. But to answer your question, you know, it just, I think moving forward, I'm trying to find, because I can't disconnect from social media. I have to be like right there and I have to like absorb all of this. I'm trying to find that balance between, again, just conveying information to my audience and being a reporter, being eyes and ears, and not being too overly passionate about these things. At least I can be like that in my life, but like, I just want to make sure that I'm not overbearing on my reporting. And that's just like the biggest balance that I'm trying to find. And what was the rest of your question? Sorry.
No, I mean, I was interested to see how it affected you personally and professionally. Like, and by professionally, I think I'm trying to see what the future holds for you in terms of your work as a political reporter, as a social activist, and you know, what is the future for Judith?
Okay, so personally, like I said, like yeah, it's one of those things where I've had meltdowns behind the scene that nobody saw, and like I would call my sisters crying, and I was like, okay, you know, again, I'm gonna work on just taking care of my mental while I do this kind of work because I want to do more of it. This trial and being out there and covering it professionally, it showed me that, because I was actually worried before the election that nobody would really need like or care about politics beyond the election. You know, I thought the roommates would just go, okay, whatever, Joe Biden's in office, we're done. But I realized that they still care about politics, but they also care a lot about social justice. So now that I did the Derek Chauvin trial, I realized like, okay, I have another interview with an activist this week, Tamika Mallory. It's actually Wednesday. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of like that balance. Politics for Black people doesn't just look like what's going on in the White House. It looks like what's going on in the streets, what's going on in police departments. There's so much to get into. Sorry, that was a loud slam. Prison reform, you know, and all the issues with the prison industrialism complex. There's so much there. And I think what this trial showed me is that what's next for me is continuing to stay close to community issues and not just focus on politics and just the huge politicians that I get to interview, like really focusing on grassroots activists. I have a video coming out today on the Shade Room where I talk to activists about what their opinion is about police reform and just suggestions and solutions that they have moving forward. I was able to talk to the mother of a young man who was arrested and died in police custody because they refused to let him get treatment for a really rare condition. And they let him stay in the prison and soil his pants and all kinds of stuff. And there was footage and it was clear like he was paralyzed and couldn't even get in his bed. And they still were like, oh, he's exaggerating, he's lying, and he died. And you know, there's just certain things I'm like, okay, this trial showed me like there's so much more. All the people I met in Minneapolis, I'm like, there's so much more to this. And it just gave me the courage to now try to do this more full time and pull away from production. So that's what's for me in the future. And then honestly, I'm meeting a lot of activists in my life. Like I have a lot of activist friends online who are like, come, be an activist, like, you know, work with us. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just never really saw myself as an activist. I don't know. I saw myself getting.
I just met you. I mean, we've just recently connected, and I do see you as an activist. I mean, you have the passion, you have the energy, you have the platform, and the passion and commitment to what you do is just very apparent, you know. So, and those are the few, you know, attributes that, you know, you're concerned about people and the earth that we're in, and you're a genuine person, and which, you know, I can already tell that you are, you know, you're open, you're accessible, you're passionate, and you have all of the energy. I do see you as an activist, and I'm a big fan of Tamika, by the way, and just in awe of the work that she's doing. Is this interview going to be on the Shade Room?
Yeah, so it's going to be a sit down in person interview. Okay. Now that, you know, not restrictions are lifting, but now that people are safer.
Yeah. What day is this?
Wednesday. It'll probably come out Friday.
Friday, okay. Well, I definitely will keep my eyes open to watch that interview.
It'll be on our IGTV if you ever want to.
Okay.
And be there. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I appreciate what you said about the activism thing. I might get into it. I also might try to get into politics. I remember thinking like, should I go get my master's at Howard in like political science or something? And then if I could get into, you know, politics, like, I don't know. I just know that my future is probably going to, I have a strong feeling like God sometimes like,
yeah,
you know, that I'll probably end up evolving from reporting on these issues to working directly in them at some point.
Okay. Definitely looks like a bright future to me, whichever path you decide to toe. Well, definitely, I know that you would thrive and excel in all of it. But, you know, I had promised to keep this short and sweet, but I mean, you're such an interesting person. I just want to talk to you for the rest of the evening. But I had one very important question about Shade Room. You know, it started off as a celebrity news platform, and some people would call it a gossip platform. I know that Shade Room is much more than that now, and has always been. It's clearer now that it's, you know, doing more. It's involved in original programming. I know that you all have like about 3 original series that you've been working on. I also know that you were involved, Shade Room was involved in some significant voter education work prior to the election. You know, we're getting people out to go register and go vote. So in essence, you know, just tell us about, you know, the evolution and the infrastructure behind the Shade Room that we see, and how it's actually a media network. At this point, I don't know if media network is the right terminology you want to use, but just, you know, educate us on how it's doing.
I think you're onto something when you say media network. Some people refer to it as like a digital network. It's definitely a media company overall. It's evolved from being a blog or gossip site. And the evolution, honestly, it stemmed from a lot of the things that Angelica prophesied a long time ago. She's like, I'm gonna speak things over the Shade Room, because she felt a lot of guilt running the Shade Room, because she was like, I don't want it to just be a gossip site, you know? And, you know, so many people have strong opinions about that, obviously. And, you know, we're praying for the downfall of the Shade Room at some point, right? So she was like, yeah, I, feel guilty. Like as she's, was becoming more spiritual and connected with God, she's like, I don't know. But she always felt reassurance that instead of canceling it out, it'll evolve into something so much better. And it'll actually end up being a really positive impact, having a really positive impact on the community. And that's what we're seeing unfolding now. She is a screenwriter. She loves production. She actually has a film out on Netflix, and she's working on another one with Universal with Issa Rae and Lala Anthony. And so she was like always wanted to get into the production side of things with TSR. So now we have 3 shows we're working on with Facebook Watch. We have another show we're working on with Buna Murray and Oxygen, which you might see me on. And it's, it's something that because she had that interest separately, she really wanted to kind of get involved with. I remember we've been pitching shows to networks since I started here at TSR. We started pitching to BET, Oxygen, Netflix, all these different places, like a social justice show a long time ago. And we're still in the works with that. We did original programming and the quirky fun stuff that Angelica likes doing outside of the shade room. So that's kind of how that got started. And then as far as politics goes, we have a political writer here, Christina, who's always loved writing about politics. And then there's me who now likes to do it in video form. And it just, I think what it is when people are passionate about something and it sticks here, we just can kind of take it off and just kind of go with the flow. The biggest thing though is just Angelica saying like, this is going to be something that impacts the community in a really positive way. And there's just so much more to the shade room, like possibly its own TV network one day, partnering with all these different brands and expanding our reach on social media even more. Like Snapchat was a project I worked on where we got greenlit and now we're a publisher on Snap and we have almost 1 million subscribers there. And it's really cool just seeing how the shade room, like, things are just, it's a very blessed platform basically, So yeah, that's pretty much how things got changed. It was a deliberate move to make sure the shade room was a more positive platform beyond just TSR morning inspirations and these cool quotes in the morning. It's like, we want to really make sure we're on the ground. We registered over 180,000 voters in the last election, and a lot of them in key states like Atlanta. Atlanta and I think it was Philadelphia. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Good work.
Yeah.
Good work. Definitely the future is social media, digital media, new media, whatever you want to call it. It is the future, and it's what's the word that I'm trying to find? I'm happy to see that you all are thinking about this path and evolution, and it's actually in the works. It's not just an idea that you and Angelica have and the network. It's actually you guys are practicalizing it. What is the name of Angelica's movie on Netflix?
It's called Night Comes On, and it's actually loosely based on our lives and experiences in foster care. And the little girl in the film was based off of me.
Wow. How is it real? Is it like actual representation of the true experiences?
No, none of my sisters went and got a gun and tried to kill our dad, but I don't give too much away, but did you guys watch Judas and the Black Messiah?
I haven't watched it. I just saw that he, the British actor in it. He won the Oscar, right?
Yeah, he won the Oscar. But his supporting actress in the film, Dominique Fishburne, who she's becoming a lot more identifiable now. One day she'll be a household name. She's actually the star of the film that Angelica wrote.
Can you say it again?
Night Comes On.
Night.
And the actress is Dominique Fishburne.
Okay. I'm definitely gonna watch it and I'll let you know what I think. And
Dominique Fishback. Sorry, go ahead.
Fishback. Okay, thanks. So before, I thought this. I mean, I can't even believe we are almost an hour into this interview, and I still have several questions, but I'm just gonna close out because I promised you we're gonna, keep this short and sweet. What do you do? So I'm gonna, give you the last 2 questions, and then you can answer them in any order. what do you do when you're not working? And then the last question I have is, just looking at the trajectory of your life and how you've, what you're working on and how you've grown and the odds that you've overcome, what wisdom would you want to pass on, especially to the younger, listeners and generation? What wisdom do you want to pass on? What do you want us to know, especially as it relates to your life and your triumph?
Okay. Those are great questions. First thing, what I do when I'm not working is people know, like, see my Instagram, like I have a pretty fun life. So I love being with my friends. I love traveling. My favorite spot with my friends in America is like Miami right now, but we like going to New York. We like going to brunch parties, you name it. We've been doing that social distance in the pandemic. For my birthday, it's like a joint birthday with me and Angelica. I think we're gonna go to Turks and Caicos in Jamaica. But yeah, I love having fun with my friends. I always tell people, like, I'm here for, I don't know how long, but I'm definitely here for a good time. I don't have to say I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Hopefully I'm here for a long time, but you know what I mean? You never know. So I always like to have fun. You guys can see that on my social media. And then as far as the wisdom that I would like to give to this generation, especially African students, is a lot of times your parents or your family like to kind of put you in a box and say, like, you have to be, for example, Angelica thought she needed to be an accountant. I thought I needed to be a doctor or a surgeon. And a lot of you might experience the same thing. Those are great careers and we need more representation in these fields. So by all means, if you're interested in that, do it. But I just would say, take time to look back at your life and look at your qualities and your characteristics, because I was blind to the fact that I would do journalism and get on camera and do all this creative work, production, you name it. I was blind to that almost my entire life. But then I realized, looking back, like when I was in high school, there would be so many teachers who would put a mic in my hand. They'd be like, MC the rallies. Whenever we have pep rallies, you should be the host. And, you should be the host of this, 5K run or this charity event and this, that, and the third, do morning announcements. And I would do it for fun on the side, but I never knew that it would end up being my career later, because I didn't envision that, because that I was limited into thinking I had to do something that was medical related. And I would just say, some of you don't really have that ability to say no to your parents, because I had financial aid and scholarships going through college. I didn't have parents who paid my tuition, so I can major in whatever I want. You can't tell me anything, right? However, I would just recommend for this newer generation to take note of your individual characteristics and your qualities and try to pursue that in a career. Don't be so focused on a specific title, because sometimes what you do might not even exist yet. Like Jackie Aina, she's Nigerian, and she always knew she had a great personality and loved makeup and stuff like that. But being a YouTuber was not something she thought she would do as a kid, because YouTube didn't even exist. So just be open-minded and try to pursue your passions, because what's connected to who you are and what you're destined to do and your passion is how you'll impact the world too. So that's just my suggestion.
Wise words from the awesome Judith. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for being just so open and honest, and and that's also why you're going to excel in, because people would naturally be drawn to you in whatever you decide to do in the future. And of course, we'll be watching and following and supporting in whatever way that we can. So again, I really want to thank you for doing this with me. I will definitely watch Angelica's movie. I'm going to keep my eye on your Instagram account so I see where you're going next, and maybe that can inspire me to go afterwards. Yeah, so thank you very much. Thank you, everyone who's logged in. And this is also going to be, like I had told you earlier on, it's going to be on our YouTube channel, and I'll share the link with you in case you want to also share with people who might want to catch this interview and hear what you had to say. So thank you
so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad you could make this. So take care, enjoy your weekend, enjoy your evening. Oh my goodness, this is Monday. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye, guys.
Bye.